She's the
Contact person.
liaison, yes.
All he said was I'm the contact person. So.
We'll get this meeting started. We're going to open with the pledges of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the city and the Cape Island communities, we'd like to welcome GPI to our for their presentation, and without further ado, we'll get things moving. If you guys want to introduce yourselves to the group, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. There we go. Okay. So thank you for having us here today to talk to you about the Cape Island Safe Streets and Roads Program Action Plan. I am Dave Kuhn. I am the project manager with GPI for this contract as part of our project team. Want to introduce
I'm Julia, GPI.
I'm Dale Foster. So I'm doing the stakeholder coordination for this project.
And I think we have joining us on virtually is Kruti Barot, who's on the screen, so she's tuning in virtually to the meeting as well. Should I go move forward with the presentation? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Let me, I'm gonna carry this so I can move a little bit. Okay, so what we want to do today, so this is you are the steering committee. And I think we should do introductions before we move on to the meeting objectives. I'd like to understand who's on the committee. So we can do introductions.
My name is Jeff Fassir. I'm a member of the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the City of Cape May.
Jim Moffett, a member of the Bapac committee.
Terry Diabaldi, Bike Committee, Bike and Pedestrian Committee Secretary.
Morris, member of the Backpack Committee. And I'm Mike Yeager. I'm the council liaison, Cape May City's council liaison to the committee.
I'm George Dick. I'm the deputy mayor at West Cape May.
Okay, thank you. We have some folks in the back.
Justin Ranks, Deputy City Manager, Cape May. Christopher Bassa, Cape May City Police. Captain Vogt, Cape May. Shane Myers, Cape May Council.
Okay, and Paul's here. We do have a few more handouts, and there's agendas and some hard copies of the presentations if folks want them. So this is the kickoff. You are the steering committee, and what we want to do today as we go forward with developing this plan is we want to ensure that this committee understands what the requirements are of the action plan and what your role is in the development of that plan. We also want to listen to you and hear your input on some of the safety issues that are happening on Cape Island. We want to walk away with an update on the stakeholder list. We do have an initial stakeholder list, but we want to get your input as well if there are other stakeholders. And we want to get some input from the committee if there are other what are the documents that we will be reviewing as part of what is called a safe system assessment to ensure alignment with the safe system approach, and I'll explain more of that later. So 4 major objectives of this meeting today. So we will be successful if we can tackle all these. So the agenda for today is, first we'll go over do an overview of the plan, talk about your role. We will then talk about our roadmap, how we're going to get there to develop this plan. Then we're going to get into some of the technical side. What are the safety data that's out there for Cape Island, and then listen to you on what issues that you see that are happening. And then we'll talk about this safe system assessment, document review, stakeholder outreach, and then finally next steps. So I will jump right in. What is a local safety action plan? So it is an actionable plan. The idea is that it's an actionable plan that will help us to prevent roadway deaths and injuries on the public roads in Cape Island. There are 8 required components, and as you may know or may not know, that this action plan grant provides a foundation for applying for additional funding for either implementation grants, which would be design and construction, or for supplemental planning grants, so to do some additional research or planning. So these 8 components, we'll go briefly through these 8 components that are required. Not all of them are required. You have to hit, some of these are mandatory, then you have to hit so many of the other ones. But I think we want to try to hit all of them if we can, because I think that will make any other future grant applications even stronger if you have a strong action plan that hits all of these. So number 1 is leadership, commitment, and goal setting. What that means is an endorsement by a high-ranking official or government body, and the goal setting is there needs to be a zero goal or a major reduction goal of fatalities and serious injuries. And we'll get there over time here. Planning structure. We're already set. We have an oversight committee. Your group serves as that. We're in good shape. Safety analysis. So we have already started some work on that, and we're going to talk about 2 kinds of safety analysis and treatment. One is hotspots and one is systemic, and we'll get into that. Engagement and collaboration. So we need to make sure that we are inclusive and engaging the community, and that is, not just government, that includes private nonprofit, community groups. If there are underserved communities, they have a voice in it and they are considered in the analysis. Equity, following up on the last one, so inclusive process. We'll do an assessment of impacts to underserved communities. My initial look using a tool that is out there called EJ Screen basically shows that Cape Island, the one group that seems to be high on the percentile is mature drivers, over 64 is and the population is very high compared to the national and state average. Policy and process changes, assessment of policies and plans to identify opportunities to prioritize transportation safety. So that gets to the safe system assessment that I mentioned before. Number 7, strategy and project selection. So we will come out of here hopefully with a prioritized set of projects and strategies on how those should be implemented. And then finally, having a method to measure progress of the plan over time, and that the progress reporting will be transparent and that the action plan will be posted publicly where everyone can access it. So those are the 8 plan components. Any questions? Fairly straightforward. Yes?
Based on your analysis of the age, you said we're a little older than most parts of the United States. Did you put the summer population as part of that analysis?
No, it's based on the census. The information that we looked at was only the census data. So that is another factor to consider in this plan, is the tourism and how the population changes. So it's a great point.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the geographic scope of this going forward
Right.
effort?
Right. So the geographic scope is the city of Cape May, West Cape May Point, and a portion of Lower Township south of the canal. So what is considered Cape Island, right? Yeah. Okay. I want to touch on the safe system approach. So the safe system approach is, and I don't know how many of you may be familiar with it. So it's a kind of a comprehensive, holistic way to look at safety on our roads. And the bottom line is really it's about that there's a responsibility by everyone for safety. It's not just about the engineers or it's not just about enforcement. So what you see on this is the Federal Highways Safe System Approach wheel, and you'll see around the outside are the 6 safe system principles, and then inside are the safe system objectives or elements, sometimes they're called. And we'll focus first, there's the 6 principles are death and serious injury is unacceptable. Humans make mistakes, going clockwise. Humans are vulnerable, so that's the understanding there that humans will make mistakes and humans are vulnerable. The responsibility, again, is shared by everybody that's on that road, whether you're a driver or whether you're a walker or a bike rider. Safety is proactive, and redundancy in our methods to protect humans should be crucial to developing that. So if there's one measure doesn't work, there's something else there that can help them to protect them from getting hurt, seriously injured. And then inside, you have the 5 objectives or elements. So focusing on safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. So even the post-crash care is emergency response. If there's a crash and somebody's hurt, how can you get to them, to the hospital, and take care of them as quickly as possible? So that is the safe system approach, so we will be following that as we develop this plan. Any questions about that? Fairly straightforward. Okay. So question that was asked before the meeting, and I want to get right to it, is talking about this plan versus there's another plan being developed that you may be aware of, which is the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization has sponsored the development of local road safety plans for each of its 4 counties. So South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization, I don't know how many of you are familiar with them. They are the Metropolitan Planning Organization for South Jersey. In New Jersey, there are 3 Metropolitan Planning Organizations, one in the north, and then you have DVRPC, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which is actually a bi-state group, and then you have the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization. So SJTPO provides long-range planning, and they also help to make federal funding decisions for projects in South Jersey, in that region, working with the Federal Highway Administration and New Jersey DOT and the counties. So they have a contract in place, and GPI is the lead on that contract as well. We are preparing local road safety plans for each of those 4 counties, including Cape May County. And Bob Church is our chair for the Cape May County, and we have representatives. We did our best to try to get representation from each of the municipalities to be involved in that plan. And we do, it's not just the governments, but it's also other stakeholders as well. And we've had workshops and some focus group meetings and things like that. So key question, how does that compare to this? So there's a lot of similarities and there are a few differences. So similarities, they're both going to, the SJTPO plan will have very similar components to this plan. Not quite exactly the same, but they'll be very similar. The idea is that it will be a qualified action plan as well that can be used to apply for implementation grants. But it goes a little farther. Than this plan will be a little bit simpler. Data sources will be very much the same where we're pulling data from. A lot of the crash data that is out there from the New Jersey DOT crash system, which collects crash data on all roads. Similar stakeholders, there may be some of you, I don't see too many familiar faces that were on the SJTPO, but we are having another workshop coming out shortly down the road, so hopefully you will be involved on those workshops. Emphasis areas and strategies, so that's a big part of this. I have question marks up there because we don't know whether we will have the same emphasis areas. We could have the same emphasis areas and some of the same strategies. We don't know. I think it's up to what this committee comes up with. There could be some overlap, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, and if there are emphasis areas and strategies that are similar, and they're in both plans, it really does not hurt anything. There's no downside. So what's different? Of course, the focus area, this is a much geographically smaller area than the Cape May County. The scope, officially, this is, this local road safety plan or this action plan is supposed to be for all roads in the area, whereas the SJTPO, we are focused on county and municipal. However, Cape Island has very little state highways on Cape Island anyway. I think just a half a mile stretch of one state highway. So it's essentially county and municipal roadways on Cape Island too. So they're very similar. The data analysis will be a little bit different. We're going into a lot more in-depth collection and analysis for Cape May than I think what we're going to have to do on this one. This will be a more simple data analysis. We can move through things quicker, I believe. Again, emphasis areas and strategies are question marks. I think the projects, when we come out of here, the projects will likely be different. There is a chance there could be some overlap. And again, if there's some projects that are listed on both plans, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. There's no downside to that. I do believe that some of these actions that are going to be more focused on Cape Island will probably, I think that'll be a big difference than what will be in the county-wide plan. And the implementation responsibilities will be different as well. Questions? And I think, the bottom line is coordination is going to be very important. So I think there's a benefit that we're doing both of them. We know what's going on with that plan. We can actually benefit from what we're doing in that plan. There's some shared information that we can bring to the table here and help this plan move along. But any questions, comments? Okay. So this is the committee's, the responsibility. So this is just an organizational structure that we put together. We use this for our other ones as well. So big picture, the dashed line there. You can see the stakeholders, that's all stakeholders in the white section. And then GPI and Cape May as our contract sponsor. We're there to support everyone in this. But we have a steering committee, you folks at the top. Below that, we have focus teams or focus groups where we will dive in as needed on specific topics or emphasis areas, where we can have a more in-depth, deeper dive conversation about specific topics. And those will be put together as we think we need them, as this committee believes we need to do. And then elected officials. So those are the kind of where we are. So the steering committee will be here to guide the development of the plan, provide direction as we needed. And then the steering committee members, as we identified, we think we have, and I'm certainly looking for other, if there's other ideas on steering committee membership. Throw this up here. If there's anyone, is there anybody you think we're missing or any changes that need to be made? Okay. Okay, so your name is not up there, sir. Okay, and your name is again? Bob Mars. Bob Mars, okay. So we will make sure to get your name up there. Is anybody not on here? Yeah, make sure it's green. Make sure it's green. That'll tell you it's on. Yeah. Yes.
Mary Snyder has moved, and Wendy Collins is no longer. There might be another question mark on another one of the members, but we'll let you know.
Great.
But,
Thank you. And do we have representation from West Cape May Lower Township? Yeah, okay, great.
Dick here.
Great, okay, great, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
George.
You are, okay, excellent. Okay. Okay, so you were at our steering committee. Okay, yeah, you were dressed differently. I didn't recognize you, yeah. Okay. So we do have somebody else that's involved, that's good. So they can tell you what's real, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Dale.
We have no one from Lower today.
No one from Lower here, okay. Okay. So again, your role, key decisions. We're going to need this committee to help us, with the direction, emphasis areas. We're going to talk about them today. What are the priorities for the strategies that we're going to come up with a bunch of strategies related to those emphasis areas and get your some decisions on what are those priority strategies. And what I need to go back to is what in the very first slide, which I didn't mention. We talk about strategies. We talk about the 4 E's plus equity. So strategies may relate to not just infrastructure, it may also relate to enforcement strategies, emergency response strategies, educational strategies, and then equity is something that's overarching everything. So it's not just about infrastructure. Zip through. And then we're going to need, recommendations, some decisions as we come up with projects and what those are. And then, we'll also need your input and guidance as we talk about stakeholder identification and communication with the stakeholders in the area. And if there's other data out there that you know of, that will also be helpful as well. So how are we going to get there? So our goal is to have this plan done by the end of the calendar year. And do I have my little, oh, okay, I thought I had a little, no, I don't have a little red dot. Okay, that's a good point. All right. So December 2024 is when we're planning to have this plan done, if not sooner. So here we are today in March with steering committee meeting number 1. And those boxes at the top with the dates in them, those are the steering committee meetings. And then below is the work that we're going to do as a project team leading up to each of those committee meetings. So after today's meeting, we are going to go back and we'll be doing data analysis. Emphasis area recommendations, maybe we can settle on some emphasis areas today. But if not, we'll come back and do that at the next meeting. We're going to work on hotspot and systemic candidate locations and countermeasure recommendations, and then reduction goal, some ideas to throw in front of the steering committee for reduction goals that we can share and get your input on, and maybe come back at that next steering committee and make some decisions on those. After the next steering committee meeting, we'll go back, we'll work on the draft plan, we'll develop a candidate project list, do a benefit cost analysis of projects, prepare project summaries. We'll make sure we get that document review done and start to think about an implementation plan. Now below that you see in a box, focus group meetings and survey, and we'll talk more about those shortly as we get toward the end of the agenda today. I have them located there in that piece, but maybe some of those might happen earlier. So we'll talk more about focus group meetings and survey. So leading up to our August steering committee meeting, we're going to have a lot of work to get done. And then after that meeting, then we'll be finalizing that plan and developing a progress tracking plan as well before we go to the city council. Questions about the roadmap schedule? We do not have dates for those meetings set. Yep, we do not. Yeah, yes.
Turn her mic on for her. Thanks.
That was okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the roadmap? If not, we will now move on, and Julia will take over, and she will talk about data.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to move the slides, or you got it? You want want to tell me? the next one? You
No,
got it.
I'll
Okay.
try. I'll try. I got a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, so let's look at some charts. Exactly what everybody wants to do early in the morning. So this is crash data trends for Cape May Island. These are based on reportable crashes that happened on public roads within the area. And we use the years 2017 to 2021. So that's a 5-year period. So the bar chart on the left is the annual frequency of crashes. So for the 5 years that we looked at, there were approximately 379 crashes. The lighter blue color indicates crashes that resulted in property damage only. Then the dark blue is crashes that resulted in a possible or minor injury. And the red color is crashes that resulted in a fatal or serious injury. So that's the chart on the left. The one on the right is just looking at fatal and serious injury crashes in Cape Island. So as you can see, 2018 and 2020, you did not have any. Awesome. And then the yellow is serious injury and the red is fatal injury. So what we want to really focus on for this plan is the fatal and serious injury crashes, because those are people. Those are people that got injured or people that were killed in a crash on public roads in Cape Island. One crash could result in multiple injuries, but this is just showing the number of crashes that had at least one serious injury.
You designate between automobile crashes, bicycle crashes, and pedestrian injuries. I mean, that's just all, everything, so.
Correct. I have more charts. So we're going to get into that. One other thing to note is that starting in 2019, the classifications for severity were updated to conform with national guidance, which if you've been participating in the countywide plan, you'll see it a little bit more. There's a spike in 2019, and then it starts going down, and that's really just because the definitions changed and not necessarily that the fatalities and serious injuries changed. You don't really have that here in Cape Island, so that's good.
Here, question.
Sure.
Is this your actual data, or is this just a sample of what it's going to be?
No, this is actual reported crashes in Cape Island from 2017 to 2021.
Including all the municipalities, West Cape May?
Yep.
Cape May, Cape Island?
Yep, it's everybody.
Okay, and this comes from whose records? The police departments?
So all the police departments are required to submit their records to the New Jersey Department of Transportation, who collects everything statewide on all public roads in a database, and we use that database as a basis. So there are times where some police departments may be behind, and they haven't submitted their records yet. So that's why we're stopping at 2021, because 2022 and 2023, they don't have all the records from all the police departments. So we're just stopping at 2021 because the state has deemed that complete.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, now we're just going to look at crashes by jurisdiction. So you can see that municipal roads have, let's see, 39% of the crashes, and county roadways had approximately 30, so that's a total of 68% of all crashes occurred on municipal and county jurisdiction roadways. You can see from there the state highway, private property, other, which includes parks, institutions, or unknown jurisdictions. And then the state and interstate authority, that's like the parkway and things like that. So you don't have too much of
And
that.
that is 2017 to 2021 data also?
Yes,
Okay.
everything is 2017 to 2021.
And you can see that's all crashes, and you can see the different colors. Some are fatal, some are
Correct.
property damage. That's all crashes.
Any other questions on this one? Okay. More charts. Here are crashes on Cape Island by crash type. So this is where we get into all the different types. So you can see fixed object, struck parked vehicle, same direction, rear end, have the most crashes on Cape Island. That is about 60% of them. And while it's the most prevalent type, usually these types of crashes just result in property damage only or minor injury. They're not the most severe. The ones that are the most severe are typically, it says pedicyclist, that's a bicyclist, or somebody using a skateboard, a scooter, something like that, and pedestrians. It's about 7%, those two categories of the total crashes. But again, they usually have the higher rates of serious injury and fatalities, which you can see here. We had one fatal pedicyclist, one fatal pedestrian, one serious injury pedestrian, 2017 to 2021.
Right angles are always intersections?
For the most part.
Generally?
For the most part. Or coming out of a driveway or something like that, yeah. And you can see as we go down, you know, not a lot of animal, not a lot of head-on, which is also good, not a lot of left turn. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Now, we also divided up the data by emphasis areas. So an emphasis area is sort of a focus area that we can, you know, bring our attention to try to come up with strategies and actions. In this plan, the New Jersey DOT has a strategic highway safety plan, so that's a statewide plan with similar concept. So we divided all the crashes in Cape Island up by those emphasis areas. So you can see drowsy, distracted, lane departure, unlicensed, which is a little surprising, and aggressive driving are up at the top. Let's see, what else do I have? Drowsy, distracted had the highest number of fatal and serious injury, with 1 fatal and 3 serious injuries. And then other than heavy vehicle, impaired drivers, and work zone related crashes, the remaining emphasis areas have at least 1 serious injury, with ped and bicyclists including a fatality. So these are the types of emphasis areas or focus areas that we're going to be looking at as part of this plan as well. They may or may not align with any of these, but we should use them as a basis or a tool to develop our emphasis areas and make sure that we obviously coordinate with the county plan, make sure we coordinate with the statewide plan to avoid duplication of efforts. Any questions on this
I'll
chart?
make one comment.
Sure.
The other thing to note about this chart is a crash may relate to more than one emphasis area. So a lane departure and aggressive, maybe one crash, but it may count under the lane departure and aggressive, or, you know, drowsy, distractive, and something. So there, essentially crashes could be double counted in here, but it has, any crash that has that attribute attributed to it by the police report gets counted in that category.
Thank you. Any other questions on this chart? That's all the charts I have, so usually we have more, so you guys are lucky. Okay, so I think we're going over to
Yeah.
Dale.
I'll turn it to Dale.
Okay, we're going to open it up to some discussion here.
I had a thought, just as you're getting ready. Is there a way to show us data for crashes for time of year, fitting in with the summer only versus the rest of the year? Okay.
Yeah, we can do that. We can slice this data hundreds of different ways. I just, you know, I thought 4 charts was enough.
So good morning, all. So now that you've seen the crash data, how does that align with what your thoughts were coming into this meeting of what crashes you are aware of in the Cape Island area?
One kind of good note was that the impaired is much lower. So just a note that that's kind of a good thing. Don't know how it's been the last 2 years, but just a note.
It fit my perception that there haven't been many fatalities on the island and in that time period. And I think they were mostly pedestrian and bicyclists, but I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, I think there was one ped and one bicyclist fatality during that 5-year period.
I was just curious why the 2020, 2021 were, the incident rate was much higher than the 3 years previous. Is that a reporting issue, or is that just, I mean, that's, are you pretty confident in that, in that data?
You gotta push.
You're looking at all crashes, the all crashes?
Yes.
Well, we did see a spike in crashes, believe it or not, during the pandemic in 2020. There were less people on the road, but people were driving not as well as they should be.
There were actually more people here year-round during the pandemic.
Right, and
It was
that's-
very busy
that's
with people who
another-
hadn't been here much.
Right.
Okay.
Does it also go back to the change in the way it's recorded too? Because that occurred in 2019, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there may be a little bit of that. By 2021, it started to level out, and you didn't have anything in 2020, so I can't really say for fatal and serious injury anyway. But, yeah, if more people, like during the pandemic, I know a lot of people started moving down here permanently, so you're going to have more action. So it's possible that that also explains part of the increase over the 2 years.
Thank you.
any other thoughts on the crash data that you've seen? How do I go back with this? This one?
No.
Oh. I'm not getting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're. There we go. Get back to the crash data so you can see it a little better, so.
We have a lot of unlicensed drivers, obviously, if the percentage is that high.
That surprised me because it's not usually that.
That-
It's usually impaired that's higher. So that one is very interesting to me. And I don't have an explanation right now.
And distracted drivers are people on their cell phones?
It's drowsy and distracted, so
Yes.
people on their cell phones doing their makeup, reading the newspaper, or they're
Eating.
falling asleep at the wheel. Yeah.
Hey,
The kids are in the back seat, fighting each other, that sort of thing.
Dale, I had a question. With the increased use of low-speed vehicles, I know there's no straight-up data, but have they started looking at creating a category for that to start tracking that data on the crash side?
When the whole micro-mobility issue started coming out, when we were doing the last strategic highway safety plan, that was something that they were looking into. I just don't know the status of that. I don't think they've updated the form that the police officers fill out yet to include those types of categories.
So there's really no way to capture that data.
Well, they do have to put down the vehicle type.
They do have
So
to,
if it is a golf cart, I guess that would be identified. I
Presumably, they would
Yeah.
fill it out that way, but.
Another question came up on licensed drivers so high. I don't know, maybe COVID, and DMVs were shut down, stuff was pushed back a lot, so I don't know if that's driving the numbers up.
Plus, also, we have, for our summer help, we do get a lot of influx of foreigners that do come in here. However, during the pandemic, we weren't getting that influx, so, so maybe the unlicensed drivers were outside the pandemic period too, so it's a thought.
Question?
Yeah.
Probably for the police, is when they talk about do they break down the what's the term for pedal cyclists? Are they breaking that down by electric bikes now versus regular bikes?
No.
Okay.
That's an interesting point, because they're dangerous, those electric scooters and whatnot.
Is that something that they could start doing? Or does it, to know?
That's not set up by us. That would be the state. We report those statistics to the state. And the state, a pedicyclist is a person on a bicycle. Electric bikes are bicycles.
Okay,
So
okay, good to know.
There's the crash records data that the officers use. That's reviewed, I think, annually for changes. So they update it based on what's going on and what attributes they want to include.
It's a standard form
Right,
that's
I
used by all police departments in the state, so.
I got it.
Would lane departure seems very high. Would that be people passing a bicycle and going into the wrong lane? What would flesh out lane departure?
So lane departure is any type of crash where a person leaves the travel lane. So they can go off into the shoulder and maybe hit a fixed object, or they would go off to the left over the double yellow and maybe have a head-on crash, or they can go completely across the road and hit a fixed object as well. So it's not for any passing of any other road user.
It could also be hitting a parked car, alongside the road, so.
So to your point of some of these categories overlapping each other, the first two would seem to be a high likelihood of that happening.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Is there any data available as to the most dangerous roads, identifying Lafayette Street or Beach Drive, or intersections where there's been crashes and, a breakdown of this, but rather than just county roads or state highways, here's the 10 most dangerous intersections on the island over the last 6 years. Is data like that available?
Yes, we do have hotspot analysis of all segments and intersections, and we also break that down further by pedestrian and bicyclists. So we'll have one list with all crashes and then another list with bicyclist and pedestrian crashes. So that's part of the hotspot analysis are we discussing that in this meeting, or that's for the next one?
I thought it was in the next one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, we will get to it because we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Emphasis areas, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I don't have those specific locations in front of me, but we are going to start talking about that in this meeting, and then probably the next meeting, we'll get into more of the details on that.
Great.
Yeah, that's the next topic, is emphasis areas. Yes.
So the unlicensed drivers would include those who had DUIs enough that they had their license taken away? Does that seem to be a common thing according to the police?
I would not say necessarily the case, no.
Okay, just curious.
And, the impaired drivers is very low here compared to the unlicensed drivers looking at this data, so.
Well, that's the impaired drivers that have had crashes.
Yes.
low here.
But they could also be unlicensed. So. Anything else regarding crashes?
So, I mean, just a comment on it is, so the total of crashes over the 5 years is 579, which means that it's basically an average of 2 a week over the period, which doesn't sound like a lot. And if you ask, what's your impression of the safety in Cape Island, I would say I'm impressed that it's only 2 a week, because I don't think my impression is it's that safe. Not just basically, I think you guys are going to look at
Right.
it physically, I don't know how aware you are, but there are a lot of dangerous places in this town and on this island, and I'm just shocked that the number's not higher. And by the way, I mean, it's only, we have very few people here for several months out of the year, and we still have that type of issue. So anyhow,
Yeah.
we definitely, as a committee, think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, even though this doesn't, people aren't dying as many as I would have thought. People aren't being as seriously injured as I thought, but our perception is it's going to get worse.
Sure.
And that's part of this plan, is we're not just looking at crash data, but we're also supposed to look at potential for
Right.
crashes. So,
This is just what was reported.
Yes.
We
Right.
don't know the near misses. We don't know the crashes that happened that they didn't report.
yep.
I mean, we can only go with what data we have. So that's where we look to the committee for, perception, near misses, anecdotal information. That's still data that we can collect and use for this plan.
Can we go back to the breakdown by roadways?
Dale?
Yes.
Could it also be that, because the data only goes up to 21, that with the pandemic and 2021 is when people started to get out on the road more. So it's a bit skewed when you look back into the previous years, that because in the next 2 years, which is 22, 23, a lot more people on the road. So this gives you an idea that it's ever increasing because we have more on the road in the last 2 years.
Yes. Yep. And the data shows that for 2021 there, so, yes. But going back to by roadways, oops. Yep. Okay, you look at the state highway. There's only about less than half a mile of 109 in the area, and see where the number of crashes are there. So if you take that out of the equation, all right, because most of them are probably occurring right there at the Lobster House, okay? That, where you've got a merge, you've got people crossing the street there. There's, you've got the U-turn underneath the bridge where you come up there, also where the merge is going on 109.
The speed change.
And the speed also changes. You're coming off a 65-mile-an-hour roadway, and now you've got to slow down to come into a 25-mile-an-hour zone. So, you've got over 80 crashes. So if you take that out of the formula, now you're less than 2 crashes per week over the time period. So, so that's one emphasis area, hotspot area, would be the state highway there. So.
Yeah. But it clearly stepped up a lot, as was mentioned before, in the last 2 years. My question right away in my mind, what I think of is electric bikes, scooters, and golf carts have increased dramatically in those 2 years. Is that part of the cause?
Yeah. And we'll ask the police department, are you seeing more crashes with the electric scooters, electric bikes, and the low-speed vehicles?
Certainly with the LSVs, we've seen some crashes with those. A few of them serious because, unfortunately, when they strike anything, whether it's a curb or another vehicle, there's a tendency they don't have the same safety features as a vehicle does. So certainly when one of those are involved in a crash, we definitely see some serious injuries there. As far as the electric vehicles and or the bicycles and the scooters, I don't know that. Again, myself and Lieutenant Mazza, we're not on the street. However, Lieutenant Mazza reviews every single report that comes through. So he might be able to give a little different interpretation than what I've seen. But I would not say that there's been a significant increase, if at all, with electric bicycles or electric scooters. The potential's there.
Yes.
I'm not saying the potential's not
Yep.
there, but we have not, as of yet, seen a significant increase or decrease one way or another.
Thank you. Appreciate that input there. All right, we're going to move on to what are the safety concerns that are not reflected in the data that's been presented? And we've just hit upon the one with the electric scooters and the electric bicyclists, and also the low-speed vehicles. So are there other areas that you feel that we need to look at? Yes.
You know, I don't know how you do this, but just instinctively, that there's narrow roads, major roads, let's say, take Lafayette Street or Washington Street as an example, which are dangerous for bicyclists. You know, that's just perception, instinct. The data may not show that there's high injuries or fatal injuries on that road. But you just know that this is a dangerous, whether it be an intersection or a large number of bicyclists trying to get in or out of town, coming down those two main streets. And, you know, it's not hard data. It's probably going to elevate that section of town, which needs some improvement one way or another. How do you address that?
Well, I mean, that's what we're looking at, is trying to determine where these areas are so that we can try to come up with better data to determine that issue, that situation, or address that situation. I mean, the crashes, you know, if they occur there, we do have that data. But how we go about getting the other data, you know, it's the potential that's there, so we can identify that as part of the action plan. And one of the issues here in Cape May City in particular is this is an old established city, so you have narrow right-of-ways. And, you know, you have to offset the demands for motorists versus bicyclists versus pedestrians. You know, you also have the surreys out there, you've got the horse-drawn carriages, so there's a lot of stuff going on, particularly within Cape May City. You know, I know, like, for instance, Sunset Boulevard is you know, a big issue with bicyclists out there, you know. And fortunately, the county is proceeding with a plan to have separate bike lanes there. So hopefully we'll see that come to fruition. You know, that's one thing that's going on there. But are there other safety things
Well,
that?
I'll just add to that regarding the, you know, the roads that may not have a crash, but they have all the attributes of other roadways that have crashes. That is something we're going to look at, to your point. You know, the anecdotal information, or bicyclists may not feel comfortable because it's so narrow. So we're going to look at those attributes on all the roadways and come up with, you know, a list of, okay, there wasn't a crash yet, but let's be proactive and address the attributes that could cause a crash in the future. So that is something we're going to look at in addition to the hot spot areas that we're already looking at.
Okay, thank you.
All I would say is that, and you already touched on Sunset Boulevard, I mostly see the traffic concerns Sunset Boulevard, Lighthouse Avenue going to the state park, but also in our town. We've made headway with sharing the road, but there's a lot of ways to go, which would address a lot of this. I've had a lot of people concerned because they see low-speed vehicles being driven by children in our town. But they wait till a public meeting to tell us that. They don't call the police. And I just see a lot of tourists oblivious to the dangers they're under. And so I don't know what the answer is there, but I think that's probably education. I know what the
Yes.
city did with the low-speed vehicle education was great. That's probably helping some.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help the homeowners who have one necessarily and let their kids drive it to the beach.
Just reiterating on the last point too, remember, this plan is driven by data, but it's not only that. So it's basically stakeholder input. Some of the issues you just brought up are great. There may be no crash data, anything, but it's a safety issue, and this plan can also address those things as well.
So something this is sort of related to this. One of the most common feedback issues I get from people in town are they're very concerned about Lafayette Street after it's paved, which is going to happen by, I think, by the end of May. Lafayette Street will be smooth. It was always a relatively high-speed street.
Yep.
And with a smooth surface, it's going to be a higher speed. So I'm being asked, can we not get the county to put in some speed tables that other municipalities have placed in their, considerably dangerous areas, I guess. Certainly where there's a lot of pedestrians in that area. So, and then a lot of this information, by the way, is coming from people that live on Lafayette Street, so they experience the speeds. So my question is that it's going to be paved in May. There's no plans for any speed tables, as far as we know.
We're waiting for this project to, identify where locations we need to address.
Can they be put in after the paving's done, though? Or does that have to be part of the paving?
Paul?
At any time? Okay, and I know Cape May Point did it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, well, as long as we can address that. I was concerned about addressing it before May.
These are, that's something that could be implemented at later, after some studies are done as far as what speeds are through there, that, hopefully the county will take initiative to actually have somebody out there doing radar and do speed surveys for that, so, yes, sir.
There's an area on Broadway by Ducky's Market and the campground and where the roads come in. And one solution to that would be the Atlantic Electric right-of-way that goes to Cape May Public Works, open that up to bike traffic so that they don't have to go to that section, then they can go to the bike path that's on Seashore Road. And it could also have it and take that right-of-way all the way to the Garrett Preserve, as you're trying to promote ecotourism. And so I think that would be an easy fix.
Excuse me,
Right-of-way's never
Dale,
easy, but-
Mr. Foster.
Yeah.
I collect speed data. There's 6 speed signs around town that we can collect the data from. I can give you them locations as well. I can forward them to you via email if that's going to help or hurt this situation. We're about a month behind. We had 3 that were malfunctioning. 1 was damaged. They're back up and functioning, from what I understand, through Public Works. I've been meaning to get out there, but the weather's just, other than yesterday, the wind, some of them I have to get on back of a truck and a ladder. It's just not feasible in the wind and rain, but I can get you that data, email that to you whenever you
That'd be
need.
great. All right. Moving on, can we identify some emphasis areas? Where would you like to see emphasis placed on what data we should be looking at, what areas that of safety that we should be looking at?
Let me elaborate on that.
Sorry.
This plan, will be driven by these emphasis areas. We can't do every emphasis area. We want to focus
Yep.
on ideally 2 or 3 emphasis areas to focus our efforts of where we're going to do analysis. We're going to start looking, based on this emphasis area so that we select, we're going to look at hot spots where crashes are happening, and then we're going to look at risk and systemic where is that potential? So these emphasis areas will be the foundation for driving the next part of the analysis. So it's very important. 2, 3, maybe 4, but we really don't want to go too much beyond that. But we want to kind of get this plan focused on where we see. And I guess to that, we can go back and look
Yeah,
at
I
the
was gonna
data.
I was going to say,
Let's go
using
back.
the-
So these are the SHSP emphasis areas from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan emphasis areas. We can kind of use these as a guide of what.
My opinion, based on these information, I think, as one area in particular, I think should be encompassed to the main entrances and exits of Cape May. And by that, I mean Lafayette, Perry, Broadway. I mean, that's a major, entrance and exit to this town. And I mentioned Lafayette and Broadway because fatality happened on Lafayette Street a couple years ago, and a fatality happened on Broadway a couple years ago. And I just think that makes sense, to have those main roads that go through the town.
So we're not looking for specific roads, we're looking for these categories.
Safety.
And then, based on the data and the hotspot, we can pull out those roadways and be more specific. But right now, we're looking at what focus areas can we pick or select for this iteration of the plan that we can focus on our efforts on.
And I'm sure pedestrians and bicyclists is probably number one, or one of the number ones, right?
What do you see as, it's an emphasis area, what do you see that you could do? I look at that, and you can't control any of that. To me, they're going the other direction. I like to see us look at what are we trying to do with moving people and cars around and low-speed vehicles and motorcycles in this town? Create safe routes for all those entities from all the spots on Cape Island. So, for example, let's just say if somebody they're at the campground, how do I get people from West Cape May Campground, which is by Ducky's Market, into Cape May so they can use the amenities in the city, go to the restaurants, and get to the beach? What is a safe route? That stuff, to me, is irrelevant unless we figure out the routes to make this happen. And then there's been multiple studies done over the last 20 years that line these out. We just get a plan and nothing really ever happens. I mean, we can sit here and brainstorm and say, all right, and Sean just made a great point, Shane just made a great point. Broadway, Lafayette, they're the two main roads in the towns from either directions. They're a pain in the neck. You shouldn't have bikes on them. You shouldn't. I live on Broadway. I can tell you, it is a mess. Little kids riding their bikes on this shoulder that's this big. So to me, the solution is get them off the road, have an alternate route, and have the time spent figuring that out rather than looking at data you're not going to change. You're not going to change distracted drivers. You're not going to change unlicensed drivers. You're not going to change any of that. So what are the routes to town? What's my route to go to Higbee Beach? What's my route to go to the new Sunset Beach thing they're doing? What if I want to go to the Point? I want to go to the Lighthouse. How do I get there? Now, obviously, that's going to be addressed by in 2026 when the county finally does Sunset.
But that kind of thing is not of any value unless there's education.
Correct.
How does anybody know what those routes are? So my question is education and signage one of the categories we're looking at? Or is that a response later on after
So that
you
would be a
decide?
strategy.
That would be an action.
That would come out in an action. Same with how do I get from point A to point B? That would be a strategy and an action. What we want to focus on right now is these emphasis areas, and you say you can't change some of them, but, that's sort of a negative view of it. The point of the plan is to start making those changes, start encouraging a safety culture. We got to start somewhere, right? And just saying, oh, we can't do it, and giving up is not a good way to go about it.
My point is, I think that people need to be protected from themselves. If you give them the option to go a route, and it's signed, and it's marked, lanes are marked, and Bob made a point about the railroad right away. You're not on the street anymore, and help having that happen will be phenomenal.
Yeah, and that can go in the plan as an action.
So what you're talking
Yeah.
about is pedestrians and
And
bicyclists,
That's what I'm
right?
hearing as an
So
emphasis.
that would be a strategy under pedestrians and bicyclists, right, to improve safety
would
of
be-
pedestrians and bicyclists?
Yeah,
Right.
that'd be
Yeah,
an
right,
emphasis.
yeah.
One thing I'd like you to look at is, we're just looking at history here.
Correct.
How about a little bit of the future?
Sure.
And, what is coming in the next couple of years? One thing that we talked about at our last meeting was a roundabout over by CVS there. And what's the impact of that on safety, both for vehicles, for bicycles, for golf carts, for pedestrians, type of thing? And, what is, you go to some national bicycle statistics, and they have projections over the next 5 years of the growth of bicyclists, electric bikes, and whatever else may be coming. So I would like to see a deal with some future happenings as opposed to just relying 100% on data from 2017 to 2021.
And the one thing I'd also throw out to remember, this is your plan. This is not our plan.
Right.
This is not the county's plan. So whatever the plan is up to you all to implement. So make sure it's something that you can feel you can achieve. It's not the state's plan. So if the plan can't be the state needs to do this or the state needs to be doing that, it's about what you can control, what you can do. Yeah.
Catherine?
I want to add on to what George was saying. I think it's a safe sharing of the road by all users.
Yep.
And with the idea that I expect that most of our problems are magnified by new visitors to the area who don't know how to get different places.
Right.
And I know it's hard for anyone to look at roadways and signage as if it's the first time they've ever been there, but there are people who, the lighthouse is in view and ask, how do they get to the lighthouse? There's just, that's what I notice. I ride my bike along Sunset Boulevard. Sometimes in the summer, I'm around town. I notice a lot of people distracted, looking around at things, looking at maps, trying to figure out where they're going all the time during the summer months. So that's probably contributing. And yeah, some of it's enforcement and education. The low-speed vehicles driving down the middle of Sunset Boulevard, which they shouldn't be. The speed limit, they shouldn't even be on that road. And people then go around them on a double yellow line because they're tired of being behind them at 20 miles an hour. So there's
Yeah.
the sharing the road and better wayfinding might, I know that's a tactic, but that might
Sure, but
help
you
with
mentioned
the seasonal aspect
You
of
mentioned the
it.
seasons and distracted, so maybe distracted driving is
Yes.
one of them. And then
It's
the action
got to
is
be.
we improve wayfinding, we make it easier for people to find things, get to where they need to go. That would be the strategies and actions.
And, I don't know if it's true that you can't use your phone and text while driving and all across the country. I know it's true in New Jersey.
Right.
But we have homeowners in our town from 37 states, so they don't know what our laws are. And certainly, many of the people from certain nearby states don't seem to understand the idea of using a turn signal. So, which has caused a number of near misses on my part, because all of a sudden they decide they're turning.
Yep.
So,
That's because Google Map is telling them, turn here.
Yeah.
So, yes, Terry?
Hotspots, you talked about getting back to hotspots. And I strongly agree with George that the big thing is routing and then some sort of safety measures in those hotspots. We have some routing that we've put in place. A lot of them are one way, which was great that they did one way,
Yeah, but now they gotta
have
get
to
back.
So that's something key, and I'm assuming with, definitely your expertise, that the routing will be both ways when we come to the routing. To address the electric company, the path over by Wilson's, that was approached. I can't remember the history on that somebody did check into that. Hillary, do you remember? and it was shot down. So maybe that's an effort to come back and address that particular path. For a hot spot, the other thing is Broadway, Lafayette, Beach, we're not talking so much about Beach. They're county roads, and one of the problems that we have as a city is the communication with the county for these key areas. So to me, that's important that we feel that support. And then the last thing was hotspot. If you want a hotspot, and I'm partial to it because I live near there, is the intersection of Lafayette, Decatur, and Bank Street. A lot of people come from West Cape May, come up Elmira. Elmira, we already know, is a key road, is another entrance into Cape May. That's an important road, but then it branches off to Bank and comes up to the city to where the gazebo is, and that's a really busy area. So to me, you've got a one-way street coming from the ocean, but then it goes two-way. That whole area, I believe, from the mall, coming to Decatur, behind the gazebo, Bank Street, Lafayette, that is a key area, hotspot to address, and I would hope that everybody would agree with that. That's one that I can tell you. The other one is, which a block right down the road, is Ocean and Lafayette, and Ocean turns into Elmira. In fact, they're working on that now, and the way bikes cross there and the turning lane from the Ocean, making a right-hand turn going out of the city on Lafayette, to me, what they have there is, there's 2 lanes there, and this is heading towards Elmira. There's 2 lanes. One is, the left-hand lane is a straight through and a left-hand turn. The right lane is just the right-hand turn. To me, the right lane should be the right-hand turn and the straight, and then make the left-hand lane, because what bikes are doing are, they're going into that right-hand lane turn, but they're going straight. So I think that is another key point there.
Yes, Hillary?
One of my pet peeve hotspots is at Cape May, going to West Cape May out to the point, is West Perry there, where it's very narrow. You've got parking on one side. The bicyclists just go on down. I can't believe there haven't been more accidents there, but again, if there could be a wayfinding situation to have people get out to the point and just stay off of Perry Street altogether. And to piggyback with what Terry was saying, as a merchant, there's very little parking, and we encourage people to bring their bikes, but it's really difficult to figure out how to get there safely. And we've done a better job with bike racks. That's been a huge improvement, but they want to come to the Rotary Park to hear the concerts, and so bring them in through West Cape May, have them park, before they get up to the mall there, but they don't know how to get there. And that is a very big hot spot, and that's right where she's talking about, next to Cape May Stage.
If I can just clarify for a minute, because we're going to talk more about hot spots down the road and what we're talking about when we're talking about hot spots. Our communication has not been very good about what a hot spot is, okay? A hot spot is an area where there's a crash history. That's what a hot spot is. You're talking about areas of safety concern, locations that you see as important or where there's safety issues. When we talk about, and we're not going to talk about it today, but our next meeting, we're going to talk about hotspot locations. We're not talking about where you think there's a safety issue. We're going to show where the data is that shows as there's crashes, a crash history. Those numbers that you saw, those are where the hotspots are when we talk about hotspots. So I don't want there to be confusion down the road, because you say, well, I brought up a hotspot before. When we talk about hotspots, it's driven by the data. And then, not to say that what you're saying, we do want to hear those locations as well. So those are important. Those are important safety locations, and we want to because those are just as important as the hotspots. So this plan includes both. So I want you to, but I just don't want there to be a confusion of terminology as we go forward. Yeah.
When you're looking at
The 2 years that we don't have this data is what's really increased. So I'm hoping you're still, without the data, still considering the importance of some of these areas, even though we don't have.
And this plan can do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Just a question on the definition of a hotspot. Having one fatality on Broadway doesn't necessarily mean it's a hotspot. So is the data statistically significant, given the small numbers of serious injury? You're using, hey, when there's a fatality, that's the spot you want to look at. But that could be just dumb luck. I mean, one's dumb, could be, and I'm very familiar with the fatality on Broadway. Is that a hot spot? It's a bad spot because there's no room to ride a bike, and you shouldn't be riding a bike. But is it a hot spot? I don't know if that small of a number of fatalities, injuries would
Right.
qualify any of this
It's
stuff.
low, so
It's,
what we do, we look at it two ways. We look at it with all crashes and see, basically what we do is we weight the types of severities, so a fatality and a serious injury would be weighted more than, say, property damage only. But we do look at all crashes, and we come up with what's called an equivalent property damage only score. Based on that score, that is how we rank the locations that we're calling hotspot, that have a high number of crashes. Then the other thing we do is we look at just the fatal and serious injury. And you're right, the numbers here in Cape Island are low, which is great. You know, we want to see them get lower, but because they're such small numbers, you know, it's hard to discern one hotspot from another when you only have maybe 3 or 1 fatal serious injury crash. So we do look at it both ways.
So in the interest of time, Bill, I mean, it's 10:40.
comment, yeah.
One comment, yeah, okay.
One other thing. I think it would be interesting for you to, if you haven't already, get a hold of the master plans for Cape May. They're done basically every 10 years, and it includes a lot of transportation issues there. For instance, I think the last 2 master plans had Lafayette Street and Washington Street as one-way streets, one coming into town, one going out of town. But when you get down, that's in the master plan, but then to make that into a reality, there is a significant rejection by the residents of doing that. So those recommendations of the master plan have yet to be implemented. And it's a bit of a hot political potato as well. But from a safety standpoint, my perception would be, it would be a lot safer if they were both one-way streets in and out of town with bike lanes and still have some parking. But I think it would be, my advice would be to take a look at those master plans and then maybe have some conversation with some people in town who developed that and did not see those recommendations come to fruition.
Very good, all right. Okay.
One thing I just want to add real quick, because I appreciate you let us talk about our idea of hotspots, and we're not supposed to focus on that right now. But to get back to this chart, I would like to do a little focus and see a little more information about the lane departures. And I say that because parking is so important in Cape May. And I can imagine there's a million, hundreds of fenders in that data right there. And I like to see how that also relates to bicyclists, because people, open up their doors not looking at a bicyclist coming their way, and see how they relate to each other. And again, parking is just, it's such a big part of Cape May. It's part of Cape May's economy. And I'd like to see if there's any data that suggests that we're not providing ample parking space or proper, instead of pulling in, at a right angle, maybe we should do a back in at a certain different angle. Those are some things I think it's important for us to look at as part of the lane departure.
Okay, thank you. So I think, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I don't know, it sounds like the committee, we haven't landed on emphasis areas today, and I don't want to belabor it if you can't land. So maybe the suggestion is that, yeah, Paul.
Just as I sit and listen to everybody, I think you can digest maybe 3 emphasis areas as I hear what all the talking is about. We start with bike ped, intersections, and the distracted driver lane departure. I think you kind of maybe put as a combo area. And I think that that probably, as those three emphasis areas, I think can dissolve into a lot of the different issues and hotspots that everybody discussed. So that would be my recommendation to kind of move forward, just because as I just sat there and listened to everybody talk about the different things, that you could probably put all of the different hotspot locations and stuff like that, which I think that's what everybody's thinking of, and they're not looking at the broader thing of, well, what kind of category does that would create the accident? And so that's really what the emphasis area, when you say emphasis area, I think we're getting confused on, we're not looking at the street or the intersection, we're looking at what is the area of the accident, what's the cause, so we're kind of got to look at it backwards. Okay, what crashes are we trying to prevent? And then we'll evaluate it and look at those hotspots that you're all talking about. So I think those would probably be the three key emphasis areas. If I just throw that out there, that would be my suggestion to move forward.
I agree. That's what my conclusion was too. I was looking at that, and so, yes, I
So
agree.
pedestrians and bicyclists, intersections, well, you have drowsy and distracted and lane depart. I mean, you can have four. We could have
Yeah.
4 of them. So we can break them into 4 if that's the committee. Who's good with that? I see one head nod. All in favor?
Can you give me those 4 again?
Sure. Pedestrians, bicyclists, that's one. Intersections, drowsy and distracted drivers, and lane departure.
Okay.
Fantastic. Great.
I think this is yours now.
All right, I guess we go back. Yeah, I guess we go back to me. And thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dale. See if I can make this work now. Go back to presentation mode. Should be working. Yeah. It's just not working now. All right, well, maybe you can help me. Okay. So this was just, in your handout, this is what the county, they look very similar for the countywide one. So they have aggressive drivers in there. Did not have intersections. Okay, real quick. So we talked earlier about doing this, oh, I need to get my microphone. So we need to do this document review of plans to assess how they align with the safe system approach. So find out, what, when we look at the principles and we look at the objectives, where do they align well? Where there might be some ideas for improvement. And then we can make some recommendations on how you can strengthen those plans. Well, we wanted to just hear from the committee if you have any ideas, thoughts on what documents we could review. So they could be policies, they could be plans, master plans, or whatever, but it's, they are those plans that are within Cape Island's jurisdictions. So just take a couple minutes. If anybody has any ideas now, we can throw them out to you now, or throw them out to us now, and if you don't, we can follow up with you all later.
And we already reviewed the county master plan.
We did review the county master plan, yes.
So we had a recommendation to review Cape May City Master Plan in terms of one-way street recommendations, that type of thing.
Okay, Cape May City Master Plan. So we will review it for the safe system approach alignment. Anything else?
The bike walk committee, you had gotten that, I believe.
The 2016 plan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there any state plans or new state plans or new things coming up?
There will be a new state strategic highway safety plan, but that's going to be a ways off. But I really think we need to focus on what's in this area. Yeah, most relevant to this area. Because we're going to review it. We're not going to review the strategic highway safety plan for its alignment with the safe system approach. I don't think that's really.
No.
what we-
Well,
yeah.
it's not going to align because it
Yeah.
predates
Yeah.
the safe system
Yeah.
approach.
Okay, so there's a couple of ideas. We won't waste a lot of time on that, but if you have other ideas, please, shoot us an email.
a quick one is on
Yeah.
that bike walk plan.
Yes.
I don't know what the direction is, I'll say the underside of Lafayette Street was never addressed in that plan. So just a note, it's on the beach side, but nothing was addressed. And again, my neighborhood, it's Elmira, which is a key area around there. So that's one thing
Okay.
that is neglected on that.
Yeah. And it may not just be plans. It could be, do you have municipal policies? Do you have
Complete street policy.
You have a complete street policy. Do you have guidance for maintenance that when your folks go out and do public works, how do they align? Are they considering safety? It's about how do they consider safety in what they are doing? And are there opportunities to strengthen the safety relationship? So is it making sure we're reviewing signs periodically to make sure that they're visible? Meet reflectivity requirements, things like that,
Not obstructed.
right? So it's not just about reviewing large-scale plans.
And I alluded to it a few minutes ago, but please take a look at the plans for the roundabout that's in the discussion stage
Yep.
right now. Because I think it's coming in the next year or two.
Okay, great. Yeah, we are aware of that project, yes.
Our master plan has a circulation element that they worked on some years ago. I don't know how relevant it's going to be to this whole island project, but
No, that would be great. Yeah.
out of that came the initial, we share the road in point, and we don't emphasize cars moving through.
Yeah. Do any towns have a complete street policy enacted?
We started looking at that years ago, but we had nothing. I know you're supposed to apply for it. You're supposed to apply for it even if you don't have anything, and we just didn't get there, so.
Okay.
But it was a consideration.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't be surprised if that's a strategy that comes out of this plan, though.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So, again, this is what we were just talking about, different things we could review, policies, master plans, guidance documents. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Dale.
Basically, we're looking to see who the, basically, we're looking to see who else we should engage as stakeholders into our group here. These are some of the folks that have been identified in the Cape May County plan, if I'm correct. And is there any other folks that you feel we should include in this group?
And just to clarify, so we've included, this is in our total stakeholder list. Stakeholders, we include government, public works, others. We just pulled this out of other, basically non-infrastructure public works engineers, pulled them out. This is really stakeholders that are more focused on enforcement and emergency management that are involved with the SJ, we have them listed as a stakeholder for the SJTPO plan, and that they are related to your towns or the county. But
It would be.
it would be for this as well.
It would be
Yeah.
for this as well, yes, exactly. I mean, because going back to the original chart there, we're looking at, engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency services. So, so we're trying to be all-inclusive as far as who should be it. And then it's not just limited to public entities and whatnot. We can also have community groups and private organizations that can be part of this group, so.
In fact, they need to be as part of
Yes,
this plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's any other group that you feel that we should include, by all means, let us know.
Like school reps, et cetera.
Yep.
Mid-Atlantic Center for the Arts, which is called something else now, but Jody Alessandrine would be a good member to invite. They run the trolley tours around town with the shuttle,
Okay.
so they're right in there.
And we're not saying to have them as a steering committee member, we're saying to make sure that we include them on outreach that we're doing on this plan, and as we have focus group meetings, et cetera, they are included. So, not necessarily to have folks, if you want others to be on a steering committee, that's a whole other.
What about the planning boards? Planning board chairs, at least to be a stakeholder, they could assign somebody from the planning board. I mean, from our town, you know. we've got-
Yeah, I think we had planning and engineering on our existing list, and we figured those were kind of, we would be included, yeah, okay, that's fine,
And
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
The council members can probably answer this, is to also factor in the jitney, because that's part of the transportation.
Yeah.
You know, good stops for them, so I don't know where that is.
So representatives of the Jitney Service, whoever runs that, yeah.
We haven't picked them yet. We haven't chosen our, we haven't awarded the RFP yet, but one of the, if we're going to go with the same company we did last year, they're very interested in being involved. They have a lot of data themselves. But to add on to the stakeholders, I think the schools should definitely be added on to that because a lot of kids bike and walk to school.
Do you have any names, contacts?
I can get John Thomas from the Board of from Cape May Elementary School. He's the administrator.
Okay, thank you.
Why not someone from the Coast Guard?
Yep, it's a good point. Thank you.
And whoever represents the public housing area near the railroad station, because that's a major cut through for people trying to avoid these other intersections. And that gets to your inclusive.
Yes, yes.
Are there any
The, chain-
business groups?
Cape May Housing Authority, yeah.
Housing Authority.
And I'd like to also add the Chamber of Commerce. They're in charge of the buses that come into Cape May and the bus permits.
Okay. Are there any private organizations that you can think of?
I serve on the Business Improvement District for the merchants in town, so I could do that, but maybe find someone else as well who could represent the merchants.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's great.
And again, if you have other thoughts after this, please reach out to us,
Yeah, our contacts are on the last page of this, so.
Okay. All right. So these are two other items here.
You want to take this?
You want to?
No, you can take this, yeah.
Okay. So in the RFP, it talked about a stakeholder satisfaction survey. And Paul and I, we discussed this and decided it was something to bring up with this group of whether it made sense to have a stakeholder satisfaction survey. What are we trying to get out of it? Who's the audience? And then we can talk about how we would do the survey. I don't know if the committee has any thoughts about doing any kind of a survey for stakeholders and what they think about safety or what the objective, so.
Do you want the answers, I guess, is the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I think the committee's pretty in tune to the public's wishes. I'll just leave it at that.
No burning desire for a survey. Okay. Okay. And we will have focus group meetings later when we're talking about specific emphasis areas and strategies. And if at that time maybe there's an opportunity to survey about what people think about certain strategies, then maybe that is an opportunity for a survey. Just put that. And then focus group meetings are there. So we talked about those as we think those will happen more once we resolve our emphasis areas, we start to look at what are the strategies, then we may focus on pedestrian and bicyclist strategies, and then we can invite stakeholders from all around to be part of that discussion. Here's different strategies. We can do some exercises like we've done on the other one, some polling exercises, get input, live polling, if it's done in a virtual means, to get some sense of what they think is important, what will work. So that's that. So we're wrapping up now. Next meeting is in June, so we think we've got our emphasis areas lined up already, so we don't have to confirm those, which is that first bullet. And then we're going to go back. We've got a lot of homework to do now to look at the data, look at hot spots where crashes are happening, where there's a crash history. And then we'll start to also do the systemic analysis, which is more of a risk-based analysis of potential for crashes. So we will start to look at that, start to look at countermeasures. So this is so each of those 4 emphasis areas, we will be digging down for hotspots and systemic. And some of those locations could overlap. There's no doubt they could overlap. We'll also talk about non-infrastructure strategies. So one is, hotspot and systemic. Those are focused on infrastructure improvements and then also non-infrastructures. Are there educational opportunities, enforcement opportunities, things like that that can be done as well? And we'll come back and talk about the goal for the plan. What is the reduction goal? So that's kind of where we are planning to go next. Any final questions?
Will you be
comments?
doing any walking tours or driving tours where you would want some input from us?
Not at the moment, but I think down the road we might if we start to identify some systemic locations and we may have to do that. We'll see. Yes.
And to note, the police department is very instrumental in education. They run at least one program a year within the schools, and then what's the National Night Out? So the police department is very instrumental in education, especially for
Good.
the youth.
That's great. That's great. Okay. All right. Anything else, Dale, Julia? Nothing? Okay.
No, it's great. Thanks, everybody,
Yeah,
for your input. This has been, this-
Well, our contact information's on your slide package, and please, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. So, not yet, not yet. It will likely may align with your. Do you have a regular scheduled meeting for your committee?
Second Wednesday at
Okay,
9:30.
okay. So, maybe that one, yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, very good. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Are you folks doing public portion?